What's up, everybody? This is Lance. I am the host of the Health and Real Estate Podcast. And today's guest is more than a guest. He is a friend, Michael Laing, aka Mango Mike. That's how I was introduced to him 3, 4, 5 years ago, however long it has been. And we're going to talk about something super awesome today, Airway Health Co. I'm going to let him dive into that. But before I do, I just want to talk about how we how we got introduced to each other. So I had just moved to West Side LA, Venice Beach, and I was looking for community. And I was just randomly got on Instagram and the Discover page, and this page popped out about ice baths. And I was thinking about I want to do my first ice bath. And they were doing an ice bath at like 6:30 a.m. on the beach. And this was still during the winter. So it was like dark at 6:30 a.m. So I was like, who are these people doing like at 6 a.m. jumping into buckets of ice and then the ocean? And I almost didn't do it, but I'm so glad I did. So that I went to this not knowing anybody. And Mike was one of the people there, and everybody there was like some of the best people I've met, some of the coolest people, my type of crazy. If you're getting up at 5:36 a.m. to go jump in some ice and do some breath work and go in the ocean, my kind of people. So it was an absolute pleasure meeting you there, and many friendships have developed since then. So Mike, he is currently in Central America, and you are part of a company called Airway Health Co. So tell us about that.
For sure. Thanks for having me on your podcast. And yeah, meeting you at the cold plunge was so fun. I vividly remember you were just strolling. I think you came from the north side. You were just strolling south. You're like, are you guys doing the cold plunge?
Yep.
And it was really fun to just like integrate after that, because it really felt like you dropped in with like the whole group that we had going on. And, it was really fun just seeing each other almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're a great friend, Lance. And thanks for highlighting your friends on your podcast.
Absolutely. And you also were a big community host. Like I remember all the Monday plant-based potlucks every single Monday. You guys had 30 to 60 people in your home every Monday for like a year straight. You guys built so much community with that, and so many like partnerships, friendships, relationships have blossomed from that. So eternally grateful.
Dude, 100%. Yeah. It's definitely a fun journey once you start blasting community and having fun and just letting it go in the direction that it needs to go. So yeah, super grateful for being able to be a host, and yeah, grateful for you for supporting too, and excited to get into this whole Airway concept.
Yeah, tell us how that started. How did you stumble into Airway Health Co. and what's the problem that you all solve?
For sure. So I just had a friend who was a dentist in Austin, Texas, and he'd been doing biomimetic dentistry for many years. And that's kind of just imitating what the body naturally does in order to repair. And we had this conversation that he wanted to transform his clinic into an airway health clinic because it was a root cause of a lot of the issues that he sees in dentistry. And so him and I paired up. I ended up moving from Venice to Austin, and we rebranded the clinic and set up a bunch of new like funnels and marketing and all this type of awareness around what airway health is. And essentially, it's the passage from which air travels from the outside into your lungs. And historically, we've had really great breathing. Like our maxillas are typically really wide. We're able to breathe in through both of our nostrils seamlessly. Our tongue fits up at the roof of our mouth, and the oxygen exchange is amazing. The problem that we've been having over the last couple generations that we continue to see, especially in the clinic, is people's tongues don't fit properly in their mouth because their maxillas are becoming underdeveloped due to just lifestyle choices. And at the same time, like less force or strain when people are eating, especially at a younger age. So it's quite interesting to be able to peer through the lens of how development really shapes our face, because we all know that when a baby comes out of when a baby comes out, you can like mold its head, right?
Yeah.
There's a suture that sits up in the middle of your mouth that gets molded. And unless your tongue is pressing up against there consistently, it's not going to expand it out, which is absolutely essential for proper breathing.
Definitely. And I read like on your Instagram, Airway Health Co, that your first line is transforming breathing, sleep, and health. So why is breathing so important for sleep and health?
Yeah, for sure. So breathing is like the most intimate interaction we have with our environment every single day. Like you can't go 15 minutes without air. Doesn't matter who you are, right? And if your airway, the path at which air travels to get into your lungs is restricted or potentially collapsing, whether it's fully or partially, your body is going to be stressed out chronically. And this affects everything, like your cardiovascular health, your resting metabolic rate, your nervous system. Everything is chronically stressed if there's impingements in your airway. So when you do open everything up, right, you allow your body to relax. And when you turn that into sleep, it allows sleep cycles to be 100% complete, as opposed to having a bunch of fragments or interruptions in order to maintain that airway. So there's a concept called micro-arousals that happen when someone is sleeping and their airway partially or fully collapses. And in order to re-engage the airway so that oxygen can return to the body like subconsciously wakes up a little bit and then it goes back to sleep. Now, it's not enough, like subconscious is not enough for you to recognize that you actually woke up, but like your whole REM cycle has to restart every time that happens. So if you're able to maintain stable breathing, especially throughout the night, you can more effectively move through your sleep cycles. And if you sleep better, your whole quality of life is going to be better. Like, I don't know about you, but if I don't sleep for like 8 hours a night consistently, I'm all sorts of like miserable. My mental health changes 100%. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah. Sleep is so important. I believe it's more important than, diet and exercise. And I think there's a study where it's like the most amount of heart attacks happen on the day after daylight savings, where you lose an hour of sleep.
Whoa.
Yeah, and there was like an article or study about it. I was like, dang. So it just really shows like how impactful sleep really is. And I feel like our generation, we kind of grew up where they never really told us or we never really knew how impactful sleep is. And we were kind of like the hustle grind culture, at least where I grew up. And it was like, forget sleep, just work. Like sleep's not important. You can sleep later. And it turns out, sleep is heavily important. It's foundational in my opinion.
Yeah, 10,000%. So, if you're able to maintain consistent breathing, which is how airway relates to it throughout your sleep, then your sleep cycles are easily more complete. And, when I went through my palatal expansion process, I felt the days after my sleep was just through the roof better. Like enough where I was actually videoing myself. And this was before I was posting every day. I was videoing myself just saying how freaking stoked I am to wake up with like unlimited energy, where it's like no alarm. You're just like up and you don't want to hang out in bed because you're like, I'm completely rested. So it's such a cool feeling.
I love that. So you mentioned something. You said palatal expansion. What is that?
Yeah. So going back to like, the concept of the squishy baby head, right? When you have all of these different sutures that fuse together to form your skull, palatal expansion is essentially the suture. Your palatal suture is the one that sits on your upper palate. So like visually, the palate is right there and there's a suture that runs right in the middle, just like a line. Now, palatal expansion is expanding this out wider. So we're bringing everything wider so that there's more room within your palate for your tongue to move forward and up. And whenever your tongue moves forward and up, let's do a little anatomical hands picture, right? So this is the front of your face and this is going to be your palate. So if our tongue is sitting here, right? If we expand the palate wider, it allows the tongue to shift forward and up. And it creates more space in the back for your airway. So palatal expansion essentially creates more room in your mouth, and then you can retrain your tongue posture to shift forward and up, giving your airway more room. And when your airway has more room, then it's easier for you to breathe. Very similarly to if you have like a wind tunnel, right? The smaller the wind tunnel, the more affected it is as wind moves through it. So it has to pick up a faster velocity in order to get through it. And we don't want to have a really fast velocity of air as it travels from the outside coming in, because then it pulls on the soft tissues. And that's like essentially what snoring is when the soft tissues start vibrating and it creates a noise, and that's snoring. But just the same way, if you were to have shutters on a window and it's slamming against the windows all night, every night for 10, 15, 20 years, that's where your shutters can start becoming loose, and you have a higher probability of the shutters collapsing and closing the airway. And that's sleep apnea. And, I'm sure I don't know if you've heard of it, but sleep apnea is where you stop breathing up to 5 times per hour. And the only real treatment that's like really publicly delivered is a CPAP machine, where you kind of look like Darth Vader and you've got this positive pressure system that goes on your face and pushes positive pressure air down into your lungs so that it keeps the airway and the flaps, those shutters, out to the side. And there's about a 30% compliance with it. Most people don't like it, and it doesn't like do them justice. So there's just a lot of people out there that don't have a real solution to breathing better. And this whole new wave of palatal expansion is definitely going to create awareness and solve a lot of people's breathing and sleeping problems, which is, kind of why I got really excited about it.
Well, I love it too. And that's one of the things that I need to improve upon the most. And I've made strides in sleep, where I used to be a heavy snorer when in my like teenage and college years. And I just up until a few years ago, I was a heavy mouth breather, even before I was helping. What helped me with the snoring the most was diet and lifestyle, because I used to eat a lot of inflammatory foods, a lot of mucousy foods, drinking beer, and I was just like always congested. And that's why I couldn't really breathe through my nose. So I was always breathing through my mouth. And then, I cut out all the bad stuff, and then that helped a lot. But then I started doing mouth tape because I was a mouth breather. And even when I try, like I would consciously keep my mouth closed when I try to fall asleep. But then as like I'm falling asleep unconsciously, I always start breathing through my mouth again, because I've been doing it my whole life. So I've noticed the mouth tape helps with that. So it helps me retrain breathing through my nose, but it still doesn't help with the palatal expansion. So I feel like I feel like is like kind of the root cause of everything. Whereas like sleep apnea is just kind of a device that helps assist, but it's not actually addressing the root cause. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So sleep apnea is the condition. The CPAP is the machine that helps. Very similarly to like a mouth tape. It could be beneficial short term. Say, for example, if you need to, like what you're saying, you've been breathing one way your whole life and you need to retrain it, mouth tape or a CPAP can be beneficial. But long term, it's not solving the problem. So, palatal expansion. And then there's another type of expansion too. It's like an AP glide where you bring the jaw forward. Both work to open up the airway so that it addresses the real reason why people like snore or have sleep apnea or are fragmenting their breathing, let's say. Yeah. Have you done a sleep study by any chance?
I have not. No.
Cool. Well, yeah. I mean, if you want, I'll send one over to you.
What does it consist of?
It's a ring that goes on your finger, and we run it through like a FDA approved medical sleep lab. So it'll give you like your stability and instability of your airway throughout the whole night. And it also breaks down any fragmentation. So breakages in your sleep or disruptions. It'll give you like a bunch of different scores, like your AHI and other medical scores as well too, so that you can see how stable your airway is while you're sleeping.
And then if people aren't having a stable airway breathing, then this is probably going to help solve that.
Yeah. So it's just like the first step is creating awareness. And after that awareness, then the next thing, like we have a comprehensive evaluation, which consists of the sleep study, so we can understand the function of your airway, and then a CBCT scan, which is the structure. So it's 3D renderings of the skull so that we can see like the distance between your two molars. We can see your sinus cavities. Is there anything in them? Where your tongue posture is. I can show you on the screen. I don't know if I can screen share, but
I believe you can. And yeah, I have seen a few of the Instagrams where I know one tip that I saw you did, it actually helped a lot, was you were saying like, naturally our tongues are supposed to rest on the like top of the roof of our tongue, right?
yeah,
Right by our teeth. And you gave a good example. You're like, right when you say the word Tigger, that's like
yeah,
right where your tongue is, that's where you should be resting it. And then I started doing that and I was like, oh, wow, this actually does help me breathe more smoothly. But it's not right now, it's not natural for me to like keep my tongue there. So I always try to remember and I'm trying to like rewire that circuit to rest it there
dude.
naturally.
Let's go. I'm so gassed that you actually benefited from that because
Yeah.
it's one thing to like post about stuff consistently, and it's another thing to hear people say that like it benefits them. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad that you learned something. But this is the kind of the imaging that I was talking about a second ago. So you could see like, we'll do cross sections and we'll be able to assess like where the tongue is resting and then the distance between the teeth. We'll be able to see like the total airway volume and then your tongue palate relationship. And this is kind of like some of the sleep data that we'll get. This is actually my sleep scores before and after. So like if you look at my fragmentation, it was up at 15% and it went down to 7 after the expansion. And then my AHI is what they use to determine sleep apnea was 11.6 and it went down to 2.7. So, and then these are kind of like the stable, unstable, REM, awake fragments. And yeah, it obviously improved after the expansion, which is pretty
I
cool.
love it. What's the process like? Like if someone was interested in this and they wanted to do like expand their palate, what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's like oral appliances that you pop up into your mouth, and there's a bunch of different ones that people use. We choose to use like custom. It's called a MASPy. It's a slow palatal expansion, and it's anchored up on the roof of your mouth. Visuals are just so helpful here because it's like
in my mind, I have no idea, so I'm kind of envisioning like something like Invisalign that like makes your slowly expands your teeth like every month or something.
yeah. So it's kind of like, can you see this image?
Yes.
So it's kind of like the one on the bottom. It'd be either on the right or the left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, essentially what it does is it sits up in your upper palate. And so you can't visibly see it when you're smiling. And at the same time, we put people into clear aligners so that there's not oh, there we go. So you see it right there.
Mm-hmm.
We put people into clear aligners so that there's no gap formed, because when there are, if you don't put clear aligners on at the same time, then you're going to get essentially a separation between the two teeth, kind of like right here.
Uh-huh.
And so we avoid that by putting the clear aligners on. So the device is actually separating your palate this way, but the clear aligners are pulling it in at the same rate. So your smile never gets really truly as disruptive as it would be if it was a 2-step process. Because most of the time we get between like 4 and 6 millimeters of expansion, and that gap would literally be right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Which looks a little funky.
Awesome. So you're able to expand the palate and keep your teeth nice and pretty and straight.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the whole concept is expansive orthodontics. Traditionally, everybody was closing teeth, like we're all removing wisdom teeth, we're pulling teeth out, and then we're making everything straight. But this new concept, it's all expansive. So we're creating more room in the mouth because our maxillas, these bones, are being underdeveloped. And so we're helping them develop more fully to create more space in your mouth for the teeth that we have, which makes way more sense, right? Like, why does everybody need to get their wisdom teeth removed? That doesn't really make sense why would we even have wisdom teeth in the first place? Exactly.
It's the
Yeah,
money. It's a profitable.
for sure. It's
Yeah, I
super.
actually have never gotten my wisdom teeth removed, and they have come in, and it did like make my teeth a little more crowded. So
Yeah.
that this is like a better solution than having your wisdom teeth removed. And you work with like patients who still have their wisdom teeth in, and it's kind of overcrowded, and this helps with that.
Oh, for sure. That's one of the main things that we help with is crowding. So we'll expand everything out so you have more room and then all your teeth will line up, right? Because when it's crowded, they get jumbled. And so
Hmm.
if you create more space, then it gives them enough room for them to be like standing by themselves.
Perfect, good. So I don't have to have my wisdom teeth.
No, dude, do not remove your wisdom
Yeah,
teeth.
I know
It's
there's
like,
actually a lot of bad stuff getting your wisdom teeth removed, and a lot of conspiracy theories behind it. We don't have to go into that. But how'd you get into this? Was this like something you were struggling with? Or like where'd the passion behind this come from?
yeah, I mean, I've just been in the healthcare space basically my whole career. So, I've got a background in kinesiology and physiology. I wanted to be a doctor. I was setting up pharmaceutical clinics in third world countries in college, realized that that's not necessarily my path. Then went to study nutrition and get my master's at USC. Was doing like corporate wellness programming and then community programming for nutrition and movement. Then started a lifestyle medicine health coaching company, transitioned from that into the supplement space. And like I was telling you a little bit earlier, I was feeling like the supplement space wasn't necessarily somewhere where I wanted to have my full energy and attention. And then it felt really good at the time. But then I just felt like it was time for me to transition into a different space. And I was actually in Brazil in the Amazon jungle when I had an intuitive feeling to reach out to the dentist who I now work with, Dr. Trivedi, and ask him if he needed help. And that's kind of how we started working together as we just started brainstorming and talking about this whole concept and how a lot of people haven't heard of it, as the fact that you haven't heard of it and you're like a health conscious, aware individual who's like living on the West Side that gets hit with all these new waves and trends is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just started hearing about it like about a year and a half ago, just under a year and a half ago. So, it's definitely a new wave and it's growing really fast, which is very exciting because it has such a positive benefit on the patients and it ignores and like avoids a lot of the problems that traditional dentistry was causing as well too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of traditional dentistry. I swear when I was younger, every time my mom took me to the dentist, they're like, "Oh, gotta pull that tooth. Gotta pull that tooth." And now that I'm looking back, I'm like, we didn't need to pull like they were fine. I think they just, that's how they make their living. But also this is more in alignment with our body without ripping stuff out. And like I'm not a big fan of surgery either, unless you absolutely have to, like you're in a car accident or whatever. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of surgeries like that. So this seems like a way that works naturally with your body and it helps address the root cause, which is another reason why you and I vibe because we're all about, root cause health, holistic health, and all that. So I love it all. I think you all are on the forefront of like a massive industry and it's providing like a really valuable impact to the world. It's going to help a lot of people. So is this just one location in Austin, Texas? Do you plan to expand? Like tell me the vision.
Yeah, for sure. So like that's kind of what I'm looking into right now is, building the logistics and back end to be able to open up other clinics. That would be the goal is to be able to spread this wider. So I'd be really, really excited to do that. And I am excited to do that. I think probably the next location that I would like to explore would be like a Phoenix spot, and then maybe partner with a dentist, orthodontist in the like Southern California area as well too, just because we have so much community out there. But yeah, that's kind of the goal, is to drive more awareness to it and essentially make it so that as someone comes in, they ask questions, they're brought through an entire customer journey or experience that really educates them and lets them know how important their breathing is. And whether they decide to go with us or not, at least they'll have a clear understanding on why their breath is so important and why they might be experiencing some of the things that they are experiencing, like some of the symptoms, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, like, are there certain exercises people can do, or any tips or tricks? Like you told me about the Tigger one. Is there anything else you could share like that?
Yeah, for sure. So like, what we're talking about right now is like palatal expansion, and palatal expansion is kind of like upgrading the structure. Now, the thing that you can do even at home right now is work on your tongue posture. It's essentially like, if I was slouched over like this, my spine over time is going to start to assume that position. Now, what you can do with your tongue is you can train it to actually be up on the roof of your mouth. And that creates a really nice seal for your body to stimulate, like, not only your vagus nerve, which calms your whole body down, but also nasal breathing. So yeah, let's do an exercise. So bring your tongue to the T spot, just the same thing when you say Tigger, kind of right there. And then the next part that you want to do is you want to suck the rest of your tongue up into your upper palate. So yeah, and then try.
That's gonna be a fun thumbnail.
Yeah, dude, I know. I feel like my whole journey of like starting posting was all around like tongue stuff, and it was just such a weird thing to be posting regularly. But I was like, honestly, it's so crazy how beneficial it is for you. So I was like, I gotta do it. I gotta make it happen. But yeah, so like try to keep your mouth a little bit more open. Yep. And then now when you bring your tongue up, try to like suction cup it up. So you bring the back of it up to meet the top. So if this is the tip, right? Bring all of it up.
I could feel it now. It started to get sore.
Dude, it's crazy. So like I'm on probably month 2 or 3 of doing tongue exercises like every day. And if you do it for like 5 to 10 minutes a day, like it's wild how much more functional your tongue can become. Like, we think of it as one muscle, but there's multiple muscles inside the tongue, and they all are really important in making sure that we're using it effectively. So like, for example, everyone should be able to seal their tongue up on the top of their mouth. And that's really applicable because every time we swallow, that's how we should swallow. The tongue should start at the T spot and then push everything back. So, and that's an exercise too, is if you put your tongue up at the T spot and you kind of like slurp and bring all your spit on the top of the tongue, if you smile and then swallow, it makes it so that you only use your tongue, so that you're not like compensating using your jaw. And you want to make sure your tongue isn't thrusting forward, because that's kind of how people get buck teeth over time, is your tongue's constantly applying pressure inside of your mouth, and you want it to be spreading your palate out wider, as opposed to pushing your teeth in all sorts of different directions, because our tongue is kind of like our natural retainer.
Yep. That is interesting. So I was told this, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if you know, but when I was younger, I would suck my thumb as a kid, and I ended up, having crooked teeth. So I got braces in like 8th grade, 9th grade, high school, and that helped. But do you think, or have you heard of like sucking your thumb when you're younger? Does that mess up your teeth?
Yeah, I mean, you're applying force this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it consistently over time, it's going to pull those teeth that way.
Mm-hmm.
The same way as if you were to thrust your tongue into the back of your teeth when you swallow, it's going to keep pushing your teeth out. So we want to make sure our tongue is pushing up and spreading our palate wider.
Awesome. I see. This is like next level stuff. I love it.
I know. It's super fun, dude. It's really fun. And once you become aware of it, I think you'll have a really fun time just like practicing.
Yeah, and I noticed off that one tip you gave, like it was easier to breathe when I put my tongue in the T position or in the T spot, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is cool." And it's
Yeah.
something you could instantly see on a quick 30, 60-second Instagram reel, apply it within seconds, and like feel the difference. I was like, oh, "Wow, cool."
Dude, that's awesome. I'm gonna post more of those now.
Yeah, keep posting more of those because they're super interesting. And then like people are trying it, whether they like tell you or not or like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
people
for
are
sure.
listening. So keep
For
it up.
sure.
Well, awesome. Thank
Thanks
you.
for the good vibes.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with Airway before we move on to maybe some other things you're working on?
No, I'm good on Airway. I feel like we covered it pretty well.
Awesome. And then, so yeah, tell us more. What I know you're living the nomad lifestyle currently. You still have the superfood, the supplement company. Like, what's the future like for Mango Mike?
Yeah, I mean, long term, I would love to build a lot of community, like figuring out how to make a neighborhood where we have a regenerative farm in the middle of it and family and friends are living together, like split demographics. And there's a community center where there's food, there's always people around is the goal. So, like, 5, 10 years, that's 100% what I'm building towards. And in the meantime, I just want to train to be an athlete. I want to ski and I want to surf. So, just really enjoying the journey, because I think I've realized over time, life is really what you make it to be. And finding those things that bring me the most joy are moving my body and being around friends and helping people become healthier. So just more of that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the secrets to health and longevity. Because so that's something I learned about watching that documentary about the blue zones, how to live to 100, where a lot of these people aren't doing the centurions, right? Like the blue zones. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of those people, they're not just living to 100, but they're like healthy at 100. They're walking up hills, they're bending over gardening, they're, living normal life. So it's not just lifespan, but it's also they have a extended health span. And they weren't doing all this biohacking stuff. They weren't eating a perfect diet, but a lot of it is they live a very stress-free life. That was like one secret I didn't know about is like stress is like, the number one killer no matter how good you eat, how good you sleep, and how much you move your body. If you're constantly stressed out, that's going to override all the other health benefits. And another thing I learned with that documentary, Secrets of the Blue Zones, was they're big on community. So I know you're a community builder. And another one was you have a certain amount of extended years and life expectancy if you volunteer or give back. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that was such a big factor. So those were some of the ones that I didn't really know about or you don't think about. But obviously, sleep, healthy relationships, move your body, and diet. Like that's kind of common. But the other ones were cool. And I feel like that's what you're doing now. You're like stress-free living, having fun, focusing on what actually matters.
Yeah, that's the journey. I love how much you're always just trying to learn and absorb new information. It's really cool. And share it because yeah, I recognize you as an awesome community builder on the west side as well. I'm not sure if you're still doing your like events that you had at the real estate location, but
Yes,
it is
we've come down on the events. We do like one a quarter now. Before it's like one a
yeah,
month. It was a little too much, but definitely still community based.
yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
That's why I
So
just really vibe with you too. So I was like, these
for
these are
sure.
my people.
Yeah.
Well,
What's
awesome.
what's
Where could people find out more about you? Follow Airway Health Co.
Yeah, on my handle is just Michael_Laing, Laing. And then Airway Health is Airway Health Co on Instagram and then Airway Health on TikTok
Perfect.
or airwayhealth.com. If
And
anyone wants a
send me
free
all the links.
consultation, we give out, yeah, I'll send you all the links. So we give out free consultations too. So if people want to learn about their airways and if their airway might be something that related to the symptoms that they're experiencing, you can feel free to give us a call. We'll schedule you with an airway coordinator. And yeah, let's get you hooked up with a sleep study too.
Awesome. Sounds good. I appreciate it, Michael. And Keep living your best life because you're inspiring others and you're making a difference.
Thanks for having me, Lance.